So, a series that I talked about actually on this channel way back when the manga first released was Tying the Knot with the Amagi Sisters. It was a manga that I read from the very early stages of its first release and really enjoyed. And I think one of the things that I actually liked about it was the fact that it started off strong and it got better as time went on, which in a lot of cases when it comes to romances, harem romances, those kinds of stuff, they can generally have a bit of a weaker beginning, but also have a main protagonist that's a little bit more wishy-washy, undecisive, no real personal goals. It's kind of one of those where it's like, oh, well, I'll make up my personal goals in like 30 years when the story's concluded. Like, there's no real decisiveness in the main protagonist, and the girls are generally the main point of the story. That's the main selling point, which can be good to a degree for those that kind of want something very easy self-insert, but I do find that a lot of harem romances or just romances in general are very self-insert, and it leads to very watered down, soulless, just shallow kind of main protagonists that don't have anything interesting going on with them, which leads to a series that feels very copy-paste because the girls will end up turning into just generic tropes, and that's their whole identity, is that trope. But in this case, no. One of the things that I really love about it is each of the individual girls, yeah, sure, you could argue maybe has a little bit of a trope built into them, but they have their own personal goals, their own aspiration, their own drive, and their own quirk when it comes to how they interact with each other and how they interact with the main protagonist and other third-party individuals that are part of the story. And their development is also a factor as well. They develop, they grow, and they become better as individuals. And that is also the case for the main male protagonist. He is someone that definitely develops, he definitely changes, he definitely evolves. The interactions between the girls are all different and unique, and even other third-party interests, particularly a fourth love interest, is one of those where, honestly, as much as people hated her in the story, and you'll know who I'm referring to, where she just changes the very fabric of reality just so she can be with him, I still found her character quite interesting. I liked her as a character, and I liked the development that went on. A lot of people kind of flipped tables over her, saying, I'm gonna quit the series because of her. I honestly see that quite a lot with a lot of these romance type series, where if there's one character that does something flawed, instantly you get a bunch of kids going, I'm quitting the series, I can't handle characters that have flaws in them. How dare there be characters with flaws? It always kind of is a little bit amusing in that sense, and especially with recent animes coming out, where that's definitely a case, where you see the realistic nature of how people can act in a certain way. It's like looking to them, I think it's like looking into a mirror, and that's where they just end up losing it, and it turns into that whole can't handle this. So that's what I love about it. I think it really is great. And as far as the source material goes, being that it is a manga and there is a lot of chapters even beyond what the anime covers, and it's an anime that has if I remember correctly, 23 episodes, and it covers chapters 78, 79, and 80 as that last component, and there is over 174 chapters. There is technically enough material for a second season. Not that I think if the season 3 was to happen, it would get announced anytime soon. I think you could be waiting quite a while before you ever see a second season announcement, if that was to ever be the case. But if I'm being realistic here, I think the main objective of this anime is to sell the source material. That is the main objective, but it doesn't mean that a season 2 is not on the table. It's just one of those where I think you might have to wait a little bit of time before there to be enough more material for it to get another season. And the reason why, and this is something I think goes over a lot of people's heads, is, again, if there's a season 2 and it covers another 80 chapters, and let's say that happens in a year to year and a half's time, that would then lead it with 160 chapters being covered. Right now, there's roughly around 174. With enough releases, it might get to, say, 200, a little bit over 200. That isn't enough material for them to try and sell beyond a season 2. So they like a large amount of room for several reasons. One, wiggle room when it comes to the amount of material being covered. They might not cover exactly 80. They might cover a little bit more, a little bit less, etc. But again, like I said, the main objective of a series is to sell the source material. So they want enough material to sell to an audience. If there isn't much material to sell, then there's no point in a second season as its main objective. Doesn't mean that it can't have other objectives, but the main objective. So I do feel like if a season 2 was to happen, it would be something that would happen at a later date. Think of a couple of Kakus. That didn't get a second season announcement for quite a bit of time, but it did get a second season announcement. That's because, again, mangas release on that sort of schedule, whether it's weekly, fortnightly, monthly. They have schedules and they need to make sure that there's enough material. But I would definitely say, as far as the anime goes, I think that's one of the things I love about it, is the fact that it starts off strong and it builds on such a interesting foundation, and it also tries to do something different. I've seen many of these types of shrine maiden, romance, harem type stories, and some of them are fun. And some of them try to add in a very basic supernatural kind of theme of ghosts and ghouls and spirits and all this other kind of stuff. But in this case, they really try to take things in a very interesting direction with the whole concept of gods and powers and prayers having that effect that, hey, maybe if you pray to the wrong individual, it might end up giving you a wish, but you may not be happy with the outcome. And it may have other sort of adverse effects. I really love what it tried to do here, because it could have gone down the generic route of just being like many other shrine maiden harem type stories, romances, and just kind of the copy paste, but it didn't. It created a very interesting, growing, diverging story, and where it goes from there, well, you just have to either read the manga or potentially wait for a season 2. But I would recommend reading the manga. Again, reading is not hard. I know reading can be challenging for some people on the internet these days, especially in this day and age where brain rot has become a problem. But I still really recommend reading source materials, because there's always little details, there's always fun. I would say one thing that I didn't like about the series, and this is more of a dub issue, because I did watch the sub and the dub. There's one particular character that I hate that does the Dongon thing, and I hate her voice acting because she's so annoying. And her voice just kind of grinds on me. But I don't think it's just because of the voice. I think it's just because of her character and the lines that she uses about the whole, like, oh, girls need to chow on something. I was like, oh, I hate her so much. She's so grindy on me. She's so patronizing, the way she talks. And it's like, girl, I was going to say woman, but I'm like, you're not a woman. You're a girl. Girl, sit down. You're what? How old? You've not even hit 18 yet, and you're talking like you're in your 30s or 40s. Sit down. You haven't been through enough life experiences to be able to talk in that manner. Stop being patronized. I'm just whining there, sort of just being petty, because that was the only thing I hate about the series, is that particular character. She is so goddamn annoying, because she is just a young teen that is acting as if she's got some insane amount of life experiences on her shoulder. It's like, sit down, be quiet, don't talk like you're an adult, and don't patronize the main protagonist. It's just fun. It reminds me of someone I knew in real life who would always claim, like, back in my days, we used... And it's like, dude, you're younger than me, be quiet. And he would always do it too. He would do it to everyone. And because most of the time he was older than most of us in the friends group, where I used to go study at TAFE, he used to be older than most of us, except me, and of course the lecturers. He would always try and talk down as like he was this wise and old person and be patronizing. And it's just like, sit down, little turbo. You've been through barely any life experiences. So it reminds me of that, okay? Let me have my petty moment. But other than that, the series is great. I love the doctor chick. Honestly, there's like that fun little kind of romance. I always kind of imagine like he had a bit of a crush on her growing up, and she knows it, so she kind of teases him, but also kind of wants to push him to actually get proper, like a girlfriend that's not like her. She's just like, yeah, you know, you're sweet, you're cute, but go get a real girlfriend. You ain't, you know. It's one of those where like a kid grows up and they have a little crush on someone that's older, and then they kind of like, that's cute. Now go get a real girlfriend. And I think that's just kind of fun. And especially with the fact that who he lives with, the girl that is that sort of tomboyish look, that whole storyline, I actually thought it was a really cool storyline. I actually really enjoyed it, mainly because it led to some really cool character development and some really interesting twists and turns of different powers and sort of adverse effects. But a lot of people didn't like it. They really didn't like what she did. And it's, again, it comes back to that thing that I mentioned before. People don't like flawed characters. They don't like villains or characters that do bad things. And I'm not saying she's a villain, but she's just someone that was really in love, really desperate, and she felt like she was entitled because he ended up leaving to go do so. And because of her own inability to confess, it ended up leading to them not actually... I mean, what would have happened if maybe she actually did confess her feelings earlier on and something did blossom? Maybe there could have been a romance between them. But due to her indecisiveness, her inability to communicate, it led to her losing him. And so I like kind of seeing those flawed characters and that desperation when someone makes a mistake, them trying to overcorrect it and end up making another mistake. It's human nature. It's what we do as individuals. But of course, it leads to many people getting up in arms going, "Oh no, we can't have flawed characters in the stories anymore because I'm too emotionally compromised in this day and age where I spent most of my life inside due to imaginary virus and now my social skills are completely built on my inadequacies on X or Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or blah blah blah, so my entire self-value is based on a bunch of imaginary people that probably aren't even real because AI is taking like that's what it is to me. It's just people that they can't emotionally deal with these kind of characters. And I think it's kind of sad because if you removed a character like that, it removes a really cool arc where you have the interaction where the girls don't even know who he is, but he has to then try and talk to them and try to reason with them in a way that would make them at least come to some logic and be like, okay, maybe we should listen to him, even though we have no idea who he is. That supernatural theme and how they really expand on it is what I think is a really good drawing hook. Ignoring the fact that, yeah, from the early stages, even pushing forward into the later chapters, there is constant development going on in the romantic sense, where first some of them didn't like him so much, and then they kind of grew to him, and then they realized they were being too harsh to him, and that constant sort of building on the romance aspect of it, and then also some of the past as well, interactions on the past. That is also one of the things that I really love. And also the self-fulfilling prophecy kind of thing. That sort of loop. Again, that's what I love about it. It really tried to take things in a unique perspective. So again, love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What did you think of tying the knot with the Amagi sisters? And like I said before, again, be mindful of when it comes to things like season 2 chances and stuff. And if it happens, it happens. I'll definitely talk about it when it does, if and when it does get a second season. So again, love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you like this video, hit the like, subscribe, and I'll see you beautiful nerds in the next video.